Chapter 1. Panic is contagious. Do not catch it, the invisible virus. Imagine you are standing in a crowded terminal. Suddenly, a group of people 100 yards away begins to run. They aren't screaming yet, but their faces are tight, their eyes are wide, and their movement is frantic. What is your first instinct? For 99% of human beings, the instinct is not to stop and ask questions. The instinct is to run in the same direction. This is the herd instinct, an evolutionary hand-me-down from our ancestors. On the savannah, if the rest of your tribe started running, it usually meant there was a predator behind them. Those who stopped to logically analyze the situation were the ones who got eaten. Evolution favored the reactors. But we no longer live on the savannah. We live in a world of complex systems, stock markets, corporate hierarchies, social media feeds, and global news cycles. In these systems, the run because they are running instinct is no longer a survival tool, it is a trap. Panic is not just a feeling, it is a biological pathogen. It spreads faster than logic, moving from person to person through tone of voice, frantic body language, and the invisible energy of high cortisol environments. When one person loses control, they send a silent signal to every nervous system in the room. The environment is no longer safe. The mechanics of emotional contagion. Science calls this emotional contagion. We have mirror neurons in our brains specifically designed to mimic the emotions of those around us. This is why you feel sad when you watch a tragic movie, or why you feel energized in a stadium full of cheering fans. It is a form of social glue. However, in a crisis, this glue becomes a chain. When fear begins to spread, it creates a feedback loop. Person A feels a flicker of anxiety. Person B senses that anxiety and amplifies it. Person C sees both of them and enters a state of full-blown panic. By the time the energy gets back to Person A, the original flicker has become a firestorm. This is how stock market bubbles burst. It's how bank runs happen. It's how a small disagreement in a boardroom turns into a screaming match that ruins a company. The logic of the situation has been completely replaced by the momentum of the crowd. Breaking the chain. To become the person who stays calm while everyone else panics, you must first accept a difficult truth. The crowd is almost always wrong. The crowd is not moving toward a solution. It is moving away from a fear. When you see everyone rushing, your first move must be to do the opposite. Slow down. When you slow your physical movements, your walking pace, your hand gestures, the rate of your speech, you are sending a manual override signal to your brain. You are telling your nervous system, I see the movement around me, but I am not a part of it. This is the birth of the emotional circuit breaker. In any group of people, there is a hierarchy of stability. The person with the most stable nervous system eventually influences the others. If you refuse to catch the virus of panic, you create a vacuum. The panic hits you and stops. You become the wall that the wave breaks against. You are the observer, not the sponge. Most people are emotional sponges. They walk into a high-stress meeting and absorb the stress. They go home to an angry spouse and absorb the anger. They scroll through a frantic news feed and absorb the dread. They are victims of their environment. The calm individual is not a sponge. They are an observer. Imagine you are standing behind a thick pane of glass. On the other side of the glass, a storm is raging. Trees are being uprooted. Rain is lashing down, and the wind is howling. You can see the storm. You can recognize its power. You can even respect the danger it poses. But you are not wet. You are not cold. You are not being blown over. This is the mental stance you must adopt in every crisis. You see the panic in your boss's eyes. You hear the frantic tone in your colleague's voice. You see the red numbers on the screen. But you recognize that these are external events. They are happening out there, not in here. The mantra, you do not absorb chaos, you observe it. Repeat this to yourself the moment you feel the pull of the crowd. When someone approaches you with wide eyes and a trembling voice, visualize that pane of glass. Let their energy hit the glass and slide off. Do not let it into your lungs. Do not let it into your heart. Real power is emotional immunity. We often mistake aggression for power. We think the person who is shouting orders and moving frantically is the leader of the crisis. In reality, That person is the most compromised. They have lost the ability to think. Real power is emotional immunity. It is the ability to remain a non-anxious presence. Think of a pilot in a cockpit when an engine fails. If the pilot begins to scream and throw their hands in the air, they are catching the panic. If the pilot remains silent, flips the necessary switches, and speaks to the tower in a low, level voice, they have emotional immunity. The situation is the same, the engine is still broken, but the outcome will be different because the pilot refused to participate in the chaos. In your life, you will face failed engines. You will face financial scares, family emergencies, and professional disasters. The world will try to force you to panic. It will tell you that if you aren't worried, you don't understand the gravity of the situation. Do not believe it. Worry is not a solution. Panic is not a strategy. The most effective thing you can do for yourself and for those you love is to remain stable. When the emotional storm begins, do not look for an umbrella. Become the mountain that the storm cannot move. Practice exercise. The 3-second buffer. Today, you will likely encounter a small contagion event. Someone will cut you off in traffic, a client will send an urgent email, or a family member will vent their frustrations at you. When it happens, do not catch it. Identify the virus. Say to yourself, this person is panicking. Visualize the glass. See their energy hitting a barrier between you and them. Choose your response. Wait 3 seconds before you speak. In those 3 seconds, remind yourself, I am observing this, not absorbing it. By the end of this chapter, you should understand that panic is a choice. It is a social trap designed to keep you reactive. By refusing to catch the contagion, you take the first step toward true authority. Chapter 2. The calm person always sees what others miss. The aperture of the mind. Imagine you are a photographer standing in the middle of a chaotic street protest. Flashbangs are going off, people are shouting, and the air is thick with tension. If you set your camera lens to a tight zoom, you might capture the angry face of one individual. You see every wrinkle of their scowl, every bead of sweat. But because you are zoomed in so tight, you miss the fact that 10 feet to your left, there is an open doorway leading to safety. You miss the fact that behind you, the police are moving in a different direction. You miss the exit because you are hyper-focused on the threat. This is exactly what happens to the human brain during a state of panic. It is a biological phenomenon known as cognitive tunneling. When the amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm system, detects a crisis, it sends a command to your visual and mental processing units. Focus only on the danger. Ignore everything else. In a primitive world, this was life-saving. If a tiger is lunging at you, you don't need to notice the beautiful sunset or the berries on a nearby bush. You need to see the tiger. But in the modern world, our tigers are complex problems, legal battles, market crashes, or interpersonal conflicts. In these scenarios, zooming in is the worst thing you can do. Panic narrows your vision. Calmness expands it. The biology of the wide-angle mind. To understand why the calm person wins, we must look at the mechanics of the eyes and the brain. Under high stress, your pupils dilate, and your peripheral vision actually begins to fade. This is tunnel vision. Your brain stops processing background information because it believes that information is a waste of energy. However, the most important information in a crisis is almost always found in the background. It is the small detail in a contract that everyone else missed because they were rushing to sign. It is the calm exit route that no one is using because they are all trampling each other toward the main door. When you consciously choose to remain calm, you are manually forcing your brain to stay in wide-angle mode. While everyone else is staring at the fire, the calm person is looking for the extinguisher. While the competitors are staring at the falling stock price, the calm investor is looking at the long-term debt-to-equity ratio that remains unchanged. The calm person doesn't necessarily have a higher IQ than the panicked person. They simply have access to more data. Because they aren't zoomed in on the fear, they see the whole board. The mantra, a quiet mind sees the whole board. The grandmaster perspective. In the world of professional chess, there is a distinct difference between a novice and a grandmaster. When a novice feels threatened by an opponent's move, they react emotionally. They fixate on the piece that is attacking them. They obsess over that one square on the board, trying to figure out how to save their queen. In their panic, they move their queen to safety, only to realize 2 moves later that they've walked straight into a checkmate they didn't see coming. The Grandmaster, however, views an attack as just another piece of information. They don't just look at the piece that moved. They look at the squares that were vacated. They look at the entire 64-square geometry. They see the secondary and tertiary consequences of every action. This Grandmaster perspective is available to anyone who can maintain their cool. When a crisis hits your business or your family, your first instinct will be to stare at the problem. You will want to obsess over the queen that is under attack. To win, you must pull back. You must mentally zoom out until you can see the entire landscape. What are the things no one is talking about right now? What are the opportunities that this chaos has created? What is the empty space on the board? History rewards the calm decision-maker. History is written by those who could see what others missed. Consider the story of Ernest Shackleton, the great Antarctic explorer. When his ship, the Endurance, was crushed by pack ice, leaving his crew stranded thousands of miles from civilization with no way to communicate, the natural response was absolute, paralyzing panic. Many men in that situation would have focused solely on the ice, the cold, and the dwindling food. They would have made desperate, rushed decisions that likely would have led to their deaths. But Shackleton was famously calm. He understood that his men's emotional state was just as dangerous as the cold. Because he remained calm, he noticed things others would have missed. He noticed the shifting of the winds, the psychological needs of his crew, and the precise moment when a daring boat journey across the most dangerous ocean in the world became the only logical option. He didn't just see the ice, he saw the way home. He saved every single one of his men. In the world of business, we see this during every economic downturn. In the 2008 financial crisis, while most investors were frantically selling their portfolios at a loss, a few calm individuals were looking at the whole board. They saw that while the banking sector was in chaos, the fundamental value of many great companies had not changed. They saw the sale while everyone else saw the crash. They became billionaires because they saw the opportunity that panic had hidden from the masses. The competitive advantage of stillness. Why is the calm person so intimidating? Why do they always seem to stay one step ahead? It is because they are playing a different game. The panicked person is playing a game of reaction. They are always one step behind the event. The event happens, they feel fear, and then they act. The calm person is playing a game of anticipation. Because they are observing the whole board, they can see the crisis forming before it hits. They see the subtle shifts in the market, the quiet change in a friend's behavior, or the small mechanical sound in the engine that precedes a breakdown. When you are calm, you have the luxury of time. Even in a situation that moves fast, a calm mind perceives time differently. Have you ever talked to an elite athlete who says the game slowed down for them? That is not a metaphor. It is a neurological reality. When your nervous system is regulated, your brain processes information faster, making the world seem slower. This allows you to see the gap. In a conversation, it's the gap where you can insert a logical point that ends the argument. In business, it's the gap in the market. In a crisis, it's the gap in the flames. Practical exercise. The peripheral reset. If you find yourself starting to zoom in on a problem, if you feel your vision narrowing and your heart rate rising, you can manually reset your brain using your eyes. This is a technique used by special forces and elite performers to break the cognitive tunnel. Level your eyes. Look straight ahead at a fixed point. Expand your field. Without moving your eyes, start to notice what is to your far left and your far right. Try to see the walls of the room or the edges of your vision while still looking forward. Notice the ceiling and floor. Again, without moving your eyes, expand your awareness to the space above and below you. Breathe into the space. As you hold this wide-angle vision, take 3 slow breaths. This exercise forces your brain out of the threat detection mode, sympathetic nervous system, and back into observational mode, parasympathetic nervous system. It literally tells your brain, there is no tiger. You are safe to look at the whole board. Conclusion. The quiet observer wins. The world belongs to those who can see. But you cannot see if you are blinded by the dust of the stampede. When everyone else is rushing toward the exit, take 1 second to look around. When everyone is shouting about the problem, look for the person who is quietly working on the solution, or better yet, be that person. Remember, panic is a blinder. Calm is a lens. The more you can settle your internal storm, the more clearly you will see the world around you. And in the world of the blind, the one who can see the whole board is king. Chapter 3. Stop reacting immediately. The illusion of speed. In our modern, high-speed world, we have developed a dangerous obsession. We mistake reacting for doing. We have been conditioned to believe that the faster we respond to a stimulus, the more competent we are. If a notification pings on our phone, we check it instantly. If someone insults us, we snap back. If the market drops, we sell. We call this being on top of things. We call it hustle. We call it efficiency. In reality, most of the time, it is none of those things. It is simply a loss of control. When you react immediately, you are not acting out of strength. You are acting out of a reflex. You are like a puppet. When the world pulls a string, you move your arm. When the world pulls another string, you kick your leg. A person who reacts instantly has no autonomy. They are entirely predictable, and they are entirely at the mercy of their environment. True power, the kind of power that allows you to dominate a room and navigate a crisis, is the ability to not react. It is the ability to sit in the fire and wait until the right moment to move. The action bias. Why we feel the need to move. Psychologists have identified a phenomenon called action bias. It is the human tendency to prefer taking action over doing nothing, even when the action is likely to be counterproductive. Think of a goalkeeper in a soccer match during a penalty kick. Statistics show that if the goalkeeper simply stands in the center of the goal, they have a statistically higher chance of saving the ball than if they dive to the left or the right. Yet, almost every goalkeeper dives. Why? Because if they dive and the ball goes in, they look like they tried. If they stand still and the ball goes in, they look like they weren't paying attention. We suffer from this same bias in our daily lives. When a crisis hits, we feel a physical itch in our hands. We feel a pressure in our chests that says, do something, anything, just don't sit there. The calm person recognizes this itch for what it is, a primitive survival mechanism that has no place in complex decision-making. They understand that most mistakes are not made because people moved too slowly. They are made because people moved too quickly out of a desperate need to relieve their own internal tension. The sacred space, stimulus and response. The neurologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously noted that there is a space between a stimulus, the thing that happens to you, and your response, what you do about it. In that space lies your freedom. For the person who panics, that space is non-existent. The stimulus and the response are fused together. The insult happens, and the anger explodes. The bad news arrives, and the despair sets in. For the calm person, that space is a sanctuary. As you train yourself in the art of calmness, your primary goal is to widen that space. You want to stretch those few seconds into a vast expanse where you can stand back, look at the situation, and decide exactly how you want to show up. When you create that space, you stop being a reactor and you start being a responder. A reactor is a slave to the moment. A responder is a master of the outcome. The mantra: pause, observe, decide. The 3-second rule of power. How do you build this space in real time? You start with the 3-second rule. In any high-pressure interaction, a heated argument with a partner, a confrontation with a boss, a sudden piece of bad news, force yourself to wait exactly 3 seconds before you say a word or make a move. These 3 seconds will feel like an eternity. Your lizard brain will scream at you to fill the silence. It will tell you that you look weak or that you are losing the initiative. But look at what is actually happening in those 3 seconds. You break the other person's momentum. If someone is shouting at you, they expect to shout back. When you give them 3 seconds of calm silence, their brain begins to short-circuit. They lose their footing because you haven't given them a wall to lean against. You regain your logic. It takes about 3 seconds for the emergency signals in your brain to pass through the emotional centers and reach the logical centers, the prefrontal cortex. By waiting, you are literally giving yourself the chance to become smarter. You demonstrate total control. Nothing is more intimidating than a person who refuses to be rushed. By taking your time, you are signaling to everyone in the room that you are the one who dictates the tempo of the interaction. Strategic delay. Why the best decisions happen later. In the military, there is a concept called OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. The goal is to move through this loop faster than your opponent. However, moving faster doesn't mean moving sooner. It means processing information more efficiently. Oftentimes, the most active thing you can do is to wait for more information. Most crises are loud but not urgent. A loud crisis is one that demands your attention immediately but doesn't actually require a decision for several hours or days. The calm individual is a master of the strategic delay. They know that the first hour of a crisis is usually filled with garbage data, rumors, half-truths, and emotional outbursts. If you react in that first hour, you are reacting to smoke, not fire. By delaying your reaction on purpose, you allow the dust of the situation to settle. You let the other people reveal their cards. You let the garbage data filter out. While everyone else is exhausting themselves by running in circles, you are sitting quietly, gathering the only pieces of information that actually matter. The psychology of control. When you stop reacting immediately, you change the power dynamic of your entire life. Think about the people who have the most power in society. Does a judge react immediately to an argument? No, they listen, they take notes, and they say, "I will take this under advisement." Does a CEO react immediately to a competitor's move? No, they call a meeting, they look at the data, and they respond with a calculated strategy. Only the people at the bottom of the hierarchy are expected to react instantly. The waiter must react when the bell rings. The soldier must react when the order is given. When you refuse to react immediately, you are mentally promoting yourself. You are telling the world, "I am the judge of this situation. I am the CEO of my life. I will move when I am ready, and not a moment sooner." Practical exercise. The delayed reply. To train your nervous system to stop reacting, start with low-stakes practice. Digital silence. The next time you receive a text message or an email that triggers an emotional response, even a small one, do not reply. Put your phone down. Set a timer for 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, observe the itch to respond. Watch how it fades. Only after the timer goes off are you allowed to decide what to say. The conversational beat. In your next conversation, even if it's a pleasant one, wait for 1 full second after the other person finishes speaking before you start your sentence. Notice how this changes the vibe of the talk. You will notice that you sound more thoughtful, more confident, and less desperate. The observe phase. During your pause, ask yourself one question. Is my next move going to fix the problem, or is it just going to make me feel better for a second? If it's the latter, don't do it. Conclusion. Reclaiming your tempo. The world is a chaotic orchestra, and everyone is trying to play their own song at the top of their lungs. If you jump in and start playing along, you are just adding to the noise. The calm person is the conductor. The conductor doesn't make a sound. They stand on the podium, they wait for the silence, and only when they have everyone's attention do they give the signal for the music to begin. Speed is a tool, but it is not a virtue. The pause is where your wisdom lives. The pause is where your strength is stored. The mantra: pause, observe, decide. From this moment forward, let the world rush. Let the world scream. Let the world panic. You are no longer a puppet. You are the one who holds the strings. Chapter 4. Your emotions are not commands. The internal dashboard. Imagine you are driving a high-performance vehicle down a dark, winding mountain road. Suddenly, a bright red light flashes on your dashboard. It's the low oil warning. What do? If you were a person who treated emotions as commands, you would see the red light and immediately veer the car off the cliff in a panic. Or, you would slam on the brakes in the middle of a high-speed turn, causing the car to flip. But as a rational driver, you don't do that. You recognize that the red light is information. It is telling you something important about the state of the engine. It's a signal that requires attention, but it is not a command to destroy the car. Our emotions are exactly like those dashboard lights. Fear, anger, urgency, and shame are signals being sent by your internal engine to let you know how your brain perceives the environment. But here is the problem. Most people have never been taught how to read their dashboard. They believe that if the anger light flashes, they must shout. They believe that if the anxiety light flashes, they must retreat. To become the calmest person in the room, you must learn the most fundamental law of emotional intelligence. A feeling is a suggestion, not a directive. The biology of the order. Why do emotions feel so much like commands? Why is it so hard to feel a surge of rage without clenching your fists or saying something cutting? The reason is ancient. For millions of years, emotions were commands. In the animal kingdom, if a gazelle feels fear, it must run. There is no logic to consult. If a predator feels hunger, it must hunt. Evolutionarily, those who hesitated to obey their emotions were the ones who didn't survive to pass on their genes. We have inherited this high-speed wiring. When you feel a sudden surge of adrenaline because someone challenged your authority in a meeting, your body is preparing for a physical fight. It is sending blood to your muscles and shutting down your complex reasoning centers. It is ordering you to defend yourself. However, we no longer live in a world where physical combat or flight is the correct response to a social or professional stimulus. The command that your body is giving you is outdated software running on modern hardware. The calm person understands this biological lag. They feel the surge of adrenaline, they feel the heat in their chest, but they recognize it as an ancient reflex, not a modern requirement. Emotion is information, not instruction. The hallmark of a high-performing mind is the ability to translate emotion into data. When you feel an intense emotion, your first task is to ask, what is this signal trying to tell me? Fear is information that you perceive a threat to something you value. Anger is information that you perceive an injustice or a violation of a boundary. Urgency is information that you perceive a narrowing window of opportunity. Envy is information that you have a desire for something you do not currently possess. Notice the shift. When you view emotion as information, you become a scientist. Scientists don't get angry at their data, they analyze it. If you are in a negotiation and you feel a sudden wave of anger, the information is, this person just tried to lowball me and it felt disrespectful. That is useful data. But if you follow the instruction of that anger, you might get up and storm out, ruining a deal that could have been salvaged. If you use the information, you stay seated, keep your voice low, and say, that offer doesn't align with the value we provide. Let's look at the numbers again. The mantra, emotion is information, not instruction. The leadership gap, discipline versus impulse. If you study the greatest leaders in history, from Stoic emperors like Marcus Aurelius to modern titans of industry, you will find that they all possess a specific type of discipline. It isn't that they don't feel things. In fact, many high achievers are more sensitive and emotional than the average person. The difference is the leadership gap, the distance between what they feel and what they do. Followers are people who are moved by their emotions. If they are in a good mood, they work hard. If they are in a bad mood, they slack off. If they are scared, they hide. Their productivity and their character are held hostage by their internal weather. Leaders are people who have decided that their actions are independent of their feelings. A leader can feel deep, paralyzing fear and still walk calmly onto a stage to give a speech. A leader can feel white-hot rage and still speak with measured, professional kindness to an employee. This is not faking it. This is emotional discipline. It is the realization that your character is defined by your choices, not by the biological impulses that wash over you. When you master this, you become terrifyingly effective. People realize they cannot trigger you. They cannot use your emotions to manipulate your behavior. You become a black box, you take in the emotional data, process it, and output the most strategic response. The boardroom of the mind. Imagine your mind is a corporate boardroom. In this boardroom, you have several advisors sitting at the table. One advisor is fear. He is always looking for what could go wrong. Another is ambition. She is always looking for how to get ahead. Another is anger. He is sensitive to disrespect. Another is compassion. She is looking at how others are feeling. In a panicked person's mind, fear has grabbed the gavel, kicked everyone else out, and is screaming into the microphone. In a calm person's mind, you are the chairman of the board. You sit at the head of the table. You listen to fear's report. You hear what anger has to say. You take compassion's notes into account. But once all the advisors have spoken, you are the one who makes the final decision. You might say to fear, "Thank you for pointing out the risks of this investment. I've noted them. However, we are going to proceed anyway because the long-term data is solid." By personifying your emotions as advisors, you create a healthy distance. You realize that you have emotions, but you are not your emotions. Practical exercise. Naming the signal. The next time you are in a high-pressure situation and you feel an emotional command rising, use the labeling technique. Stop and identify. Instead of saying "I am angry," say "I am noticing a signal of anger." This small linguistic shift is profound. "I am angry" is an identity. "I am noticing anger" is an observation. Ask for the data. Ask yourself, what is the data behind this signal? Is it telling you that you're tired? That you're unprepared? That you're feeling insecure? Decline the instruction. Explicitly say to yourself, "I hear the signal, but I decline the instruction." For example, "I feel the signal of urgency to reply to this insulting text." The data is that I feel my ego is being attacked. I hear the signal, but I decline the instruction to reply right now. I will wait until tomorrow. The freedom of the Stoic. There is a massive amount of freedom that comes from knowing that your emotions cannot force you to do anything. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid bad feelings. They don't take risks because they want to avoid the feeling of fear. They don't have hard conversations because they want to avoid the feeling of awkwardness. But when you realize that emotions are not commands, you no longer have to fear your feelings. You can go into the scary meeting knowing that you will feel fear, and knowing that the fear doesn't matter. You can have the awkward conversation knowing that you will feel uncomfortable, and knowing that the discomfort has no power over your tongue. The calm person is free because they have stopped trying to control their emotions and have started controlling their responses. They allow the dashboard lights to blink and flash as much as they want, while they keep their hands steady on the wheel and their eyes on the road. Conclusion: you are the pilot. The storm of human emotion is inevitable. As long as you are alive, you will feel pulses of panic, sparks of temper, and weights of sadness. But you are the pilot, not the plane. The plane may shake, the turbulence may be severe, and the warning lights may be screaming. But if the pilot remains calm, the plane stays in the air. The mantra: emotion is information, not instruction. Write this down. Memorize it. Carry it with you into the next crisis. When the world tries to provoke you, look at the red light on your dashboard, smile at the information, and then choose your own path. Chapter 5. Silence is a weapon. 1, 2, 3. The reflex of noise. In most high-pressure situations, you will notice a common phenomenon. As the tension goes up, the volume of the room goes up with it. People begin to talk faster, explain more, defend their positions more aggressively, and offer unsolicited details. This is not because they have more to say. It is because they are uncomfortable. In psychology, this is known as leakage. When a person feels internal pressure, whether from guilt, anxiety, or a lack of confidence, they try to relieve that pressure by speaking. 4. They feel that if they can just keep talking, they can maintain a sense of control over how they are being perceived. 4. They believe that words are a shield. 5. But they are wrong. In a state of panic, words are not a shield. They are a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to your weaknesses. Every time you over-explain yourself, you give the other person more leverage. Every time you defend yourself against an unasked question, you signal that you feel guilty. Every time you babble to fill an awkward pause, you reveal that you are not comfortable with yourself. The calm individual understands a profound truth. Noise is a sign of internal chaos. Silence is a sign of internal order. 5. The pressure of the void. To use silence as a weapon, you must first understand what it does to the brain of the person across from you. Human beings are socially conditioned to mirror one another. In a standard conversation, there is a rhythmic give and take. You speak, I speak. If you stop speaking, I feel a biological urge to fill that gap. Silence creates a void, and the human mind abhors a vacuum. 6. When you deliberately hold your tongue in a moment of tension, you are increasing the cognitive load on the other person. Because you aren't speaking, they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you're angry, if you're unimpressed, or if you've discovered a flaw in their argument. This uncertainty causes their brain to go into overdrive. To relieve this unbearable tension, most people will start talking. And because they are talking to relieve tension rather than to communicate a strategy, they will start to leak. They will reveal their true objections. They will lower their price. They will admit to things they didn't intend to share. They will literally talk themselves out of their own position. The mantra, silence is control. The negotiators pause. Elite hostage negotiators and top-tier sales professionals use silence as a primary tool. There is a specific tactic called the 4-second pause. Imagine you are in a negotiation and the other person makes an offer that is completely unacceptable. The average person would react immediately. That's way too low. We can't do that. This reaction gives the other person information. It tells them exactly where your pain point is. The calm person does nothing. They simply look at the other person and wait. 1 second passes. The other person begins to feel a slight itch. 2 seconds pass. They start to wonder if they've insulted you. 3 seconds pass. They begin to feel the need to justify their offer. 4 seconds pass. Often, before you have said a single word, the other person will say, "Well, I mean, that's just a starting point. We have some flexibility on the terms." By saying nothing, you have forced them to negotiate against themselves. You haven't spent a single ounce of emotional energy, and you have already won a concession. This is the power of the weaponized quiet. You are letting the other person's own anxiety do the work for you. Silence as authority. The Eisenhower example. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander during World War II, was a master of the long pause. Before the D-Day invasion, the most high-stakes military operation in human history, Eisenhower sat in a room with his top generals. 7. The weather was horrific, the risks were astronomical, and the tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Everyone was looking to Eisenhower to say something, to reassure them, to give a grand speech, or to argue about the meteorology. Instead, Eisenhower sat in absolute silence for several minutes. He wasn't being passive, he was holding the space. He was absorbing the information and letting the weight of the moment settle. When he finally spoke, he didn't give a long-winded explanation. He simply said, "Okay, let's go." Because of the silence that preceded it, those 3 words carried the weight of a mountain. Silence serves as a frame for your words. 4, 5, 8, 9. If you talk all the time, your words are like pennies, common and cheap. If you speak rarely and with deliberation, your words are like gold bars. They are heavy, they are rare, and everyone pays attention when they are moved. Why calm people become quieter? In a crisis, the person who is panicking is trying to outshout the problem. They believe that by increasing their output, they can dominate the situation. 8. The calm individual does the opposite. They become quieter. 6. They realize that when you are quiet, you can hear. You hear the tremor in the other person's voice that tells you they are bluffing. You hear the omission in the report that tells you where the real problem lies. You hear the subtle shift in the room's energy that tells you it's time to move. 5. A quiet person is a dangerous person because they are a collecting machine. While the panicked person is outputting their energy and exhausting themselves, the calm person is inputting data and building a map of the situation. Practical exercise. The silence challenge. To weaponize your silence, you must first become comfortable with the awkward gap. Most of us have been trained since childhood to be polite and fill the silence. You must unlearn this. The question mark stop. The next time you ask someone a question, at work or at home, stop exactly at the question mark. Do not add an explanation. Do not say, "I'm asking because." Just ask, and then look them in the eye. Wait for them to answer, no matter how long it takes. The beat in arguments. If someone says something to you that is provocative or insulting, wait 3 full seconds before you respond. Notice how the fire of the interaction dies down when you don't feed it with immediate noise. The listening walk. Spend 15 minutes in a social setting, a coffee shop, a meeting, or a dinner, where you commit to saying as little as possible. Focus entirely on observing the leakage of others. Watch how much people reveal when they think no one is judging them. The shield of the unreadable. Finally, silence makes you unreadable. As we will discuss in later chapters, predictability is the death of influence. If people can predict your reaction, they can control you. When you are silent, you are a black box. Your enemies don't know if you're plotting their downfall or if you're simply bored. Your allies look to you with more respect because you don't seem desperate for their approval. The mantra, silence is control. In a world that cannot stop talking, your ability to be quiet is your greatest tactical advantage. 6. It preserves your energy, it reveals your opponent's hand, and it creates an aura of unshakable authority. The next time the world starts to scream, don't scream back. Just watch, just listen, and let the power of the void do the work for you. Chapter 6. Slow down when the world speeds up. The trap of artificial urgency. Imagine you are in a crowded emergency room. Suddenly, the doors burst open, and a trauma patient is wheeled in. Blood is everywhere, machines are beeping, and the family is screaming in the hallway. To the untrained eye, it looks like a scene of pure, high-speed chaos. You would expect the doctors to be running, shouting, and moving with frantic energy. But if you look at the most experienced trauma surgeons, you will notice something shocking. They are moving with a strange, almost surreal slowness. Their movements are fluid and deliberate. They do not run. They do not shout. They speak in low, level tones. Why? Because they know a secret that the rest of the world has forgotten. The more critical the situation, the more important it is to slow down. In our daily lives, we are constantly bombarded by artificial urgency. This is the feeling that every email requires an instant reply, every deadline is a life or death matter, and every minor argument must be resolved this second. Panic loves speed. Panic uses speed to bypass your logic and force you into mistakes. When you feel the world speeding up around you, it is usually a sign that someone, or something, is trying to rob you of your clarity. The physics of error. There is a direct correlation between speed and the error rate. In any system, whether it's a computer processor, a car on a racetrack, or the human brain, increasing speed beyond a certain threshold causes the system to degrade. When you rush, your fine motor skills evaporate. This is why you fumbled your keys when you were late for work this morning. When you rush, your cognitive filters fail. This is why you sent that angry email that you regretted 5 minutes later. Panic pushes you to move faster because it wants to get it over with. The brain, under stress, feels a deep discomfort. It wants to escape the tension of the crisis as quickly as possible. So, it rushes to a conclusion, any conclusion, just to make the feeling of uncertainty go away. The calm individual resists this urge. They understand that the rushed solution is often just a second, bigger problem in disguise. They accept the discomfort of the crisis and choose to move at a pace that ensures accuracy. The mantra, speed creates mistakes. Calm creates clarity. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. In the elite world of the Navy SEALs, there is a legendary saying, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you try to draw a weapon and fire as fast as possible, your muscles will tense, your grip will be off, and you will likely miss the target. You are fast, but you are ineffective. However, if you focus on making the movement perfectly smooth, moving with deliberation and grace, the speed becomes a byproduct of your efficiency. Eventually, the person who is smooth will always outdraw and outshoot the person who is merely fast. This applies to every area of your life. If you are in a high-stakes meeting, don't rush through your presentation. Speak at 75% of your normal speed. Use pauses. If you are in the middle of a technical crisis at work, don't start clicking buttons and changing settings frantically. Take your hands off the keyboard. Look at the screen. Trace the problem to its source. By slowing down, you are actually reaching the solution faster because you aren't spending time fixing the mistakes caused by your own haste. You are moving with surgical efficiency, dictating the tempo. Most people are tempo takers. They allow the environment to dictate how fast they move. If the boss is frantic, they become frantic. If the customer is impatient, they become impatient. They are like leaves caught in a river, being pushed along by the current. The calm individual is a tempo giver. They understand that tempo is a choice. Have you ever seen a great basketball player, someone like Larry Bird or Luka Doncic? They aren't the fastest players on the court. In fact, they often look like they are moving in slow motion compared to the high-flying athletes around them. And yet, no one can take the ball from them. Why? Because they dictate the tempo. They force the defense to play at their speed. They use head fakes, pauses, and deliberate footwork to turn the chaos of the game into a dance that they are leading. You can do the same in your professional and personal life. When someone comes to you with an urgent problem, do not match their energy. Instead, force them to match yours. If they speak quickly, you speak slowly. If they are pacing back and forth, you sit down. If they demand an answer now, you say, "I hear you. Let me take 60 seconds to think about that so I can give you the right answer instead of the fast one." When you dictate the tempo, the panic in the room begins to evaporate. Your calmness acts as a speed bump for the collective anxiety of the group. The biological feedback loop. Slowing down isn't just a mental trick, it's a biological necessity. When you move fast, your heart rate naturally increases. Your breathing becomes more shallow. This sends a signal to your brain's amygdala that says, "We are moving fast because we are in danger." This triggers more cortisol, which makes you feel more panicked, which makes you move even faster. It is a death spiral of stress. By moving your body slowly, you are manually hacking this feedback loop. When you deliberately walk slowly to a high-pressure meeting, you are telling your heart to stay steady. When you take a slow, deep breath before answering a difficult question, you are telling your brain that the environment is safe. You cannot think clearly if your body is in sprint mode. You must bring the body to a halt before the mind can find the solution. The power of the next right move. Panic makes you think about 1,000 things at once. It makes you worry about the consequences of failing, the reaction of the public, and the complexity of the future. This macro thinking is what creates the feeling of being overwhelmed. When you slow down, you switch to micro thinking. You stop worrying about the whole mountain and start focusing on the next 6 inches in front of you. In a crisis, the calm person asks one question: what is the next right move? Not the next 10 moves, just the next one. If your house is flooding, the next right move isn't to call the insurance company. It's to find the water shut-off valve. If your business is losing money, the next right move isn't to redesign your entire brand. It's to look at today's cash flow statement. By slowing down and narrowing your focus to the immediate, tangible next step, you remove the weight of the crisis. You become a machine of pure execution. Practical exercise. The half-speed day. To master this, you must practice when the stakes are low. The physical slowdown. For the next hour, perform every physical action at half speed. Wash the dishes slowly. Walk to the bathroom slowly. Type on your keyboard with deliberate, soft strokes. Notice how much more aware you become of your surroundings. The one breath rule. Before you open any app on your phone, and before you answer any phone call, take one full, conscious breath. Do not let the device dictate your response time. The tempo reset in conversation. The next time someone tries to rush you in a conversation, count to 3 in your head before responding. Then, speak slightly quieter and slower than they are. Watch how they unconsciously begin to slow down to match you. Conclusion. Clarity is the prize. We live in a world that is obsessed with fast food, fast fashion, fast news. But fast is often shallow, and fast is often wrong. The calm person knows that clarity is the ultimate prize. And clarity can only be found in the stillness. When the world speeds up, when the screams get louder, and when the pressure becomes immense, that is your signal to move with the grace of a surgeon. Don't let the current of the world carry you away. Plant your feet. Breathe. Move with deliberation. The mantra, speed creates mistakes. Calm creates clarity. By refusing to be rushed, you prove that you are the master of your environment rather than its victim. Chapter 7. Train your nervous system. The thermostat versus the thermometer. Most people live their lives as emotional thermometers. If the room is hot, their temperature rises. If the environment is cold, they freeze. They are a direct reflection of the conditions around them. If there is panic in the office, their nervous system vibrates with panic. If there is anger in the home, their heart rate spikes with anger. The calm person, however, is an emotional thermostat. A thermostat does not just record the temperature, it dictates it. When a thermostat senses that the room is getting too hot, it triggers a cooling system to bring the environment back to a set point. To become a thermostat, you must understand that calmness is not just a mental state, it is a physical reality. You cannot think your way out of a panic attack if your body is convinced you are being hunted by a predator. You must learn to speak the language of your nervous system, and that language is not made of words. It is made of breath, posture, and physiological signals. The biological superhighway, the vagus nerve. Deep within your body runs a remarkable nerve called the vagus nerve. It is the longest nerve of the autonomic nervous system, stretching from your brainstem all the way down to your abdomen. It is the superhighway of calm. The vagus nerve is responsible for toggling your body between two modes, the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. When everyone else is panicking, their sympathetic system has taken over. Their pupils dilate, their heart rate triples, and their digestion shuts down. They are ready to fight or run. The problem is that in a modern crisis, like a stock market crash or a difficult performance review, fighting and running are useless. The calm individual knows how to manually stimulate the vagus nerve to flip the switch back to parasympathetic mode. They don't wait for the world to become safe before they feel calm. They force their body into a state of safety so that their mind can find a solution. The remote control of the mind. The breath. If your nervous system is the television, your breath is the remote control. It is the only part of your autonomic nervous system that you can control both consciously and unconsciously. You cannot tell your heart to beat slower. You cannot tell your stomach to stop churning. You cannot tell your adrenal glands to stop pumping cortisol. But you can control your breath. And because the breath is hardwired to your heart rate and your brain's alarm system, when you change your breathing, everything else must follow. When we are stressed, we take thoracic breaths, shallow, rapid sips of air into the upper chest. This signals to the brain that we are in a high-stakes struggle. To break the panic, you must shift to diaphragmatic breathing, deep, slow breaths that expand the belly. The technique, box breathing, used by Navy SEALs, snipers, and elite athletes. Box breathing is the fastest way to reset your hardware. Inhale for 4 seconds, filling the belly. Hold for 4 seconds, keeping the lungs full but the throat relaxed. Exhale for 4 seconds, pushing all the air out slowly. Hold for 4 seconds, keeping the lungs empty. When you do this, you are sending a biological all-clear signal to the brain. You are saying, a person being chased by a lion would never breathe like this. Therefore, I must be safe. The brain believes the breath overrides the panic and brings your logic back online. The mantra, control the breath, control the mind. The posture of stillness. Your brain is constantly scanning your own body to see how you are feeling. If you are fidgeting, tapping your foot, hunched over, or touching your face, your brain concludes that you are anxious. This creates a feedback loop. You feel anxious because you are moving like an anxious person, and you move like an anxious person because you feel anxious. To train your nervous system, you must master tactical stillness. Watch a high-ranking military officer or a powerful CEO in a crisis. They don't fidget. They don't adjust their tie. They don't shift their weight from foot to foot. They move like a mountain. Stillness is a signal of dominance and safety. In the animal kingdom, the most nervous animals are the ones that are constantly twitching and looking around. The apex predator is the one that can sit perfectly still for hours. By forcing your body into a state of stillness, you are hacking your brain's perception of the crisis. Relax your jaw, Much of our stress is stored in the masseter muscle. Drop your shoulders. We naturally pull our shoulders toward our ears when threatened. Keep your hands visible and still. Clenched fists or hidden hands signal combat mode to your nervous system. Training for the storm. You cannot learn to sail in a hurricane. Similarly, you cannot expect to master your nervous system for the first time in the middle of a life-altering crisis. You must train your hardware during the quiet times. This is why many of the world's most successful and calmest people engage in stress inoculation training. They voluntarily put their bodies under stress to practice staying calm. 1. Cold exposure. Taking a 30-second freezing cold shower is a perfect simulation of a crisis. Your body wants to gasp, panic, and jump out. If you can stand in the cold water and maintain a slow, steady box breath, you are training your vagus nerve to handle a sudden shock in the real world. 2. Physical exhaustion. When you are at the end of a difficult workout and your lungs are burning, that is the time to practice facial relaxation. If you can keep a poker face while your muscles are screaming, you are building the neural pathways of calmness. 3. Meditation as resistance training. Meditation is not just about relaxing. It is about noticing when your mind starts to wander into panic mode and gently, firmly bringing it back to the breath. Every time you do this, you are doing a rep for your prefrontal cortex, the poker face of the soul. There is a profound psychological effect that happens when you refuse to let your body reflect the chaos. It is called the facial feedback hypothesis. If you force your face to remain neutral or even slightly pleasant during a stressful event, your brain will actually find the event less stressful. But there is a secondary benefit. Your calm body settles the people around you. Because of the emotional contagion we discussed in Chapter 1, your slow breathing and still posture will act as a biological anchor for everyone else. When they see that your nervous system is not reacting, their own nervous systems begin to mirror yours. You aren't just saving yourself, you are leading others back to logic. Practical exercise. The physiological reset. Today, at 3 different points, perform a hardware check. Scan for tension. Check your jaw, your shoulders, and your grip on your phone or steering wheel. If they are tight, release them. The physiological sigh. Take a deep breath in through your nose, then at the very top, take one more tiny sip of air to fully expand the lungs. Then, let out a very long, slow exhale through your mouth. This is the fastest biological way to dump CO2 and lower your heart rate. The stillness minute. Set a timer for 60 seconds. Sit in a chair and do not move a single muscle, not even a finger. Watch the itch to move and let it pass. Conclusion. The body is the foundation. You can read every book on logic and strategy, but if your nervous system is high-strung, you will always be a victim of the moment. Calmness is a physical skill. It is the result of a well-trained vagus nerve, a disciplined breath, and a body that refuses to reflect the panic of the crowd. Treat your body like a temple of stillness. Train it in the cold, train it in the gym, and train it in the silence. When the real storm hits, you won't have to try to be calm. Your body will simply do what it has been trained to do. The mantra: control the breath, control the mind. While the rest of the world is vibrating with cortisol, you will be the eye of the hurricane, perfectly still, perfectly centered, and perfectly in control. Chapter 8. Detach from the drama. The silent addiction. If you look closely at the world around you, you will begin to notice something strange. Most people claim to hate stress. They complain about their toxic workplaces, their difficult family members, and the exhausting news cycle. They say they want peace and quiet. But if you observe their actions, a different story emerges. When a scandal breaks on social media, they spend hours scrolling through the comments. When a colleague starts a rumor, they lean in closer to hear the details. When a family argument begins, they feel a surge of energy and jump into the fray. The truth that most people are afraid to admit is that many people secretly enjoy chaos. Drama is a drug. It provides a massive hit of dopamine and adrenaline. It makes life feel high stakes and cinematic. For a person who feels bored or invisible, drama provides instant validation and a sense of importance. If they are in a crisis, people have to pay attention to them. If they are fighting an enemy, they feel like the hero of their own movie. They aren't looking for a solution, They are looking for a fix. The calm person recognizes this addiction in others and refuses to be their supplier. The drama triangle. In the 1960s, psychiatrist Stephen Karpman developed a model called the drama triangle. It describes the three roles people play in any chaotic situation: the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. The victim feels oppressed and helpless. The rescuer tries to save the victim, often to feel superior or needed. The persecutor blames others and starts the conflict. The trap of the triangle is that the players constantly switch roles. The rescuer becomes a victim when their help isn't appreciated. The victim becomes a persecutor when they lash out in frustration. Most people spend their entire lives running around this triangle, burning through their emotional energy and achieving absolutely nothing. They believe they are solving problems, but they are actually just participating in a theatrical performance. The calm individual understands that the only way to win the game is to not step on the stage. You must become the audience, not the actor. You must detach. Detachment is not apathy. There is a common misconception that being detached means being cold, uncaring, or robotic. This is not true. Detachment is not the absence of care. It is the presence of a boundary. Imagine you are standing on the shore of a turbulent ocean. You see someone thrashing in the waves. If you jump in without a rope or a plan, you will likely be pulled under by the same current, and then there will be two people drowning. That is what happens when you attach to someone else's drama. You lose your footing and become part of the problem. Detachment means standing firmly on the shore. It means saying, "I see that you are in a storm. I can throw you a life vest, but I will not drown with you." By maintaining your emotional distance, you preserve your ability to be helpful. A doctor who cries as much as the patient cannot perform surgery. A lawyer who is as angry as the client cannot build a logical defense. Your value in a crisis is directly proportional to your ability to stay outside of the emotional whirlpool. The mantra, "Not every storm deserves your energy." Protecting your emotional capital. Think of your emotional energy as a bank account. Every day, you are given a limited amount of currency to spend. When you get upset because a stranger was rude to you on the internet, you have just spent $50 of your emotional capital. When you spend the afternoon gossiping about a co-worker's divorce, you have spent another $100. By the time something actually important happens, like a real business opportunity or a genuine family crisis, your account is empty. You are bankrupt, and you react with irritability and exhaustion. The calm person is a financial miser with their energy. Before they get involved in a situation, they ask themselves, what is the return on investment, ROI, of this emotion? If I get angry at this person who cut me off in traffic, does it make the traffic move faster? No. Does it make me a better driver? No. It simply drains my battery. If I engage in this argument with a person who is committed to misunderstanding me, what do I gain? Nothing but a headache. When you realize that your energy is finite, you stop buying into everyone else's drama. You realize that most of what people call emergencies are actually just emotional noise. How to decline the invitation. Drama is an invitation. When someone approaches you with a frantic tone, a "did you hear what happened?" opener, or a direct insult, they are inviting you to play a role in their theater. You have the right to decline. The most powerful way to detach from drama is to remain non-reactive. When you don't give the drama addict the emotional reaction they are looking for, they will eventually take their theater elsewhere. They need a sparring partner, and if you refuse to put on the gloves, the fight cannot happen. Tactics for refusal. The grey rock method. If you must interact with a high-drama individual, become as uninteresting as a grey rock. Give short, polite, neutral answers. I see. That's interesting. Okay. Do not offer opinions. Do not defend yourself. Do not ask follow-up questions. The observation label, internally, label what is happening. Say to yourself, this is the drama triangle. This person is trying to cast me as the rescuer. By labeling the behavior, you move the experience from your emotional brain to your logical brain. Physical distance. If a room becomes thick with drama energy, leave. You don't need an excuse. Go for a walk, get a glass of water, or go to the bathroom. Use the physical break to reset your emotional immunity. Detaching from the global noise. In the 21st century, we aren't just dealing with the drama of our neighbors. We are dealing with the drama of the entire world. The 24-hour news cycle and social media algorithms are designed to keep you in a state of constant outrage arousal. They want you to believe that every headline is an existential threat. This is macro drama. It is the ultimate energy drain. The calm person understands that they cannot solve the world's problems if they are constantly vibrating with the world's anxiety. To be effective, you must detach from the noise and focus on your circle of influence. If you cannot change a global event, why allow it to ruin your breakfast? This isn't about ignoring the world, it's about choosing when and how you engage with it. Instead of being a passive consumer of outrage, become a deliberate seeker of information. Read the news once a day, then put it away. Refuse to participate in the digital stampede of panic. The peace of the observer. There is a profound sense of freedom that comes when you stop feeling responsible for everyone else's emotional state. You are not responsible for fixing someone who refuses to change. You are not responsible for calming down someone who wants to be angry. You are only responsible for your own internal climate. When you detach, you will notice that people might call you aloof or stuck up. They might try even harder to provoke you. This is because your calmness is a mirror that shows them their own chaos, and they don't like what they see. Stay steady. The peace you find in the absence of drama is worth far more than the temporary high of being right or being involved. Practical exercise. The movie theater visualization. The next time you are pulled toward a dramatic situation, whether it's a social media feud, a workplace conflict, or a family blow-up, try this. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself sitting in an empty movie theater. The screen. See the conflict playing out on the screen in front of you. See the people shouting, the frantic movements, and the plot. The distance. Remind yourself that you are in the seat, and the drama is on the screen. You are just watching a performance. You can see the characters, but they cannot touch you. The exit. Imagine yourself standing up, walking out of the theater, and stepping into a quiet, sunlit park. This visualization reinforces the observer stance. It trains your brain to see drama as an external event rather than an internal reality. Conclusion. Saving your fire. Fire is a powerful tool, but if you use it to burn every pile of trash you see, you will eventually run out of fuel. The calm person saves their fire for things that matter, their goals, their family, and their personal growth. They don't waste it on the trash fires of gossip, ego, and artificial urgency. When a storm approaches, don't run into the rain to try to stop it. Go inside. Close the door. Light a candle. And wait for the sky to clear. The mantra, not every storm deserves your energy. By detaching from the drama, you aren't losing the world, you are finally gaining yourself. Chapter 9. Calm is intimidating. The power of the unknown. When we think of someone intimidating, our minds often go to the image of a large, aggressive individual, someone who shouts, looms over others, and uses their physical presence to dominate. But this is a shallow form of intimidation. It is the intimidation of a barking dog. Once you understand that it is just noise, the fear disappears. Aggressive people are easy to read, and because they are easy to read, they are easy to manage. The most truly intimidating person in any room is the one who says nothing, shows nothing, and remains perfectly still while everyone else is falling apart. Why is this so unsettling? Because human beings are wired to seek patterns. We are social animals that rely on feedback loops. When I yell at you, I expect you to either shrink back or yell back. When I insult you, I expect to see a flicker of hurt or a spark of anger in your eyes. When I give you bad news, I expect to see your shoulders slump. When you remain calm, you deny the world that feedback. You become a black box, a system where the input is known, but the internal processing and the resulting output are hidden. This creates a massive psychological advantage. Your silence and your stillness act as a mirror that reflects the other person's insecurities back at them. Emotional people are predictable. The core of tactical advantage is predictability. In game theory, in war, and in business, if I can predict your move, I have already defeated you. Emotional people are the most predictable people on earth. If I know that you have a short fuse, I know exactly how to distract you. If I know that you are desperate for approval, I know exactly how to manipulate you. If I know that you panic under pressure, I know that all I have to do is create a sense of urgency, and you will make a mistake. When you allow your emotions to dictate your actions, you are essentially handing over the remote control of your life to anyone who happens to be in the room. You are a puppet, and your emotions are the strings. The calm individual, however, has cut those strings. Because they do not react to provocations, they cannot be baited. Because they do not explode in anger, they cannot be dismissed as unstable. Because they do not show fear, they cannot be bullied. Their lack of reaction makes them a wild card. And in any high-stakes game, the wild card is the one everyone fears. The mantra, stillness creates authority. The predator versus the prey nervous system. In the animal kingdom, there is a distinct difference in the way predators and prey move. Prey animals, rabbits, deer, birds, are characterized by high-frequency movement. They are constantly twitching, looking around, shifting their weight, and reacting to every snap of a twig. Their nervous systems are on a hair trigger. Predators, like lions or wolves, move with low-frequency energy. They are capable of intense, explosive action, but their default state is one of absolute, heavy stillness. They don't fidget. They don't look around nervously. They pick a target and they hold their gaze. When you are in a high-pressure situation and you are fidgeting, checking your phone every 10 seconds, or babbling to fill the silence, you are signaling prey energy to everyone around you. You are telling the room that you are uncomfortable, that you feel threatened, and that you are not in control. When you sit still, truly still, you signal apex energy. You are telling the room that you are the one who is comfortable with the tension. You are signaling that you are not afraid of what might happen next. This form of quiet intimidation doesn't require you to say a word. Your presence alone establishes a hierarchy where you are at the top. The authority of the anchor. In a storm, everything is moving. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and the debris is flying through the air. In that environment, the only thing that has any value is the thing that does not move. When a company is facing a lawsuit, or a family is facing a crisis, or a team is facing a crushing defeat, everyone begins to panic. They are the waves. They are looking for something to hold on to. They will naturally gravitate toward the calmest person in the room. This person becomes the anchor. Because you aren't moving, you become the point of reference for everyone else. This is how you gain authority without ever asking for it. Authority isn't granted by a title or a badge. It is granted to the person who remains the most stable when the environment becomes unstable. Think of a pilot during a mid-air emergency. The passengers are screaming, the flight attendants are frantic, and the plane is shaking. Then, the pilot's voice comes over the intercom. It is low, slow, and entirely devoid of emotion. He says, "We've got a bit of a mechanical issue, folks. We're going to be diverted to an alternate airport. We'll be on the ground in 20 minutes. In that moment, the pilot has absolute authority. Why? Because his calm is intimidating. It suggests a level of mastery that is beyond the understanding of the passengers. It suggests that while they see a catastrophe, he just sees a process. Psychological warfare, the unblinking gaze. One of the most powerful tools of the calm person is the ability to hold a gaze without the need to break it. Most people find prolonged eye contact uncomfortable, especially during a conflict. They will look away, blink rapidly, or look down at their hands. This is a submissive signal. It is an admission that the emotional pressure of the interaction is too much for them to handle. The calm individual uses the unblinking gaze, not in a way that is aggressive or crazy-eyed, but in a way that is steady and observant. By refusing to be the first one to look away, you are silently stating, "I am more comfortable in this conflict than you are." This creates a leakage effect in the other person. They will start to feel the need to explain themselves. They will start to fidget. They will start to lose the thread of their argument. Your stillness is a vacuum that pulls the stability right out of them. The mask of the master. In many ancient cultures, the highest form of mastery was the mask-like face. In the samurai tradition of Japan, Warriors were trained in the concept of mushin, or no mind. A warrior who was angry was considered a poor warrior, because his anger made him sloppy and predictable. The ideal warrior was one whose face showed nothing, no fear, no triumph, no malice. When you wear the mask of the master, you are not being fake. You are being strategic. You are choosing what the world gets to see. If you win a major victory and you stay calm, you signal that you expected to win, that this is your normal state. That is intimidating. If you suffer a major loss and you stay calm, you signal that the loss didn't break you, that you are already planning your next move. That is even more intimidating. By keeping your highs and your lows hidden, you create an aura of invincibility. People start to wonder, what does it take to rattle this person? And once they start asking that question, they have already given you the power. Practical exercise. The non-reactive mirror. To practice the art of intimidating calm, you must learn to absorb energy without reflecting it. The blank page face. The next time someone is venting at you, complaining, or being aggressive, make it your goal to show zero facial reaction. Do not nod. Do not frown. Do not smile. Just look at them with neutral, relaxed eyes. The slow blink. If you feel yourself getting rattled, use the slow blink. Close your eyes for 1 full second and then open them. This reset prevents the rapid-fire blinking that signals panic. The still hands challenge. During your next high-stakes meeting or difficult conversation, keep your hands flat on the table or resting in your lap. Do not move them for the entire duration of the talk. Observe how the other person's hands begin to move more as yours stay still. Conclusion. Stillness is the ultimate flex. We live in an era of performative emotion. People think that to show they care, they must be outraged. They think that to show they are working hard, they must be stressed. They think that to show they are powerful, they must be loud. They are all wrong. The ultimate flex is the ability to be the only person in the room who isn't trying to prove anything. When you are calm, you are signaling that you are already full. You don't need the attention, the validation, or the reaction of others. Stillness is authority. Silence is control. And calmness is the most intimidating weapon in your arsenal. Because while everyone else is revealing their intentions through their panic, you are keeping yours hidden behind a wall of unshakable peace. The mantra, stillness creates authority. Chapter 10. The calm mind wins the long game. The horizon of the panicked mind. Imagine you are standing in a thick fog. You can only see 2 feet in front of you. Every shadow looks like a monster, and every sound feels like an immediate threat. Because you can't see the path ahead, your only goal is to survive the next 10 seconds. You are reactive, frantic, and short-sighted. This is the permanent state of the panicked mind. Panic, by its very biological nature, is a short-term tool. It was designed by evolution to solve problems that last for seconds, fleeing a predator, fighting off an attacker, or jumping out of the way of a falling rock. It is not a tool for building a career, managing a marriage, or navigating an economic cycle. When you are in a state of panic, your time horizon collapses. You stop thinking about next year, next month, or even next week. You only think about how to stop the current discomfort right now. This leads to what psychologists call temporal discounting, the tendency to sacrifice a massive future benefit for a tiny bit of immediate relief. The calm person, however, lives on the horizon. They understand that while the fog of the current crisis may be thick, the path continues far beyond it. They do not make decisions based on the now, they make decisions based on the always. The cost of relief. Most of the catastrophic mistakes people make in life are not caused by lack of intelligence. They are caused by the desperate search for emotional relief. Consider the investor who sells their entire portfolio during a market dip. They aren't selling because the companies they own have suddenly become worthless. They are selling because the feeling of seeing red numbers on a screen is unbearable. They sell to make the feeling stop. They trade 30 years of future wealth for 30 seconds of emotional relief. Consider the person who sends a bridge-burning text message to a boss or a spouse during an argument. They aren't doing it to solve the conflict. They are doing it because the pressure of the anger is so high that they need to vent to feel better. They trade a decade of relationship building for 5 seconds of satisfaction. The calm person recognizes this trap. They know that the itch to react is just your brain trying to find a shortcut to comfort. But there are no shortcuts to long-term success. The mantra, short-term emotion destroys long-term success. Strategy versus relief. In any crisis, there are two paths you can take. Path A is the relief path. It is fast, it is emotional, and it feels good for a moment, but it usually leads to a dead end. Path B is the strategic path. It is slow, it is often uncomfortable, and it requires you to sit in the fire without moving. But it leads to the horizon. The calm mind is a strategic mind. While everyone else is asking, how do I make this stop? The calm person is asking, where do I want to be in 5 years, and does this reaction get me closer to that goal? If the answer is no, the calm person declines the reaction. They realize that discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is simply the price of admission for the long game. If you can endure the discomfort of a crisis without making a reactive mistake, you have already won. Most of your competitors will defeat themselves by panicking. All you have to do is remain standing. The power of waiting it out. One of the most underrated skills in the world is the ability to do nothing. In our culture of hustle, we are taught that we must always be moving. But in a crisis, movement is often the enemy. There is a concept in military strategy called strategic patience. It is the understanding that many problems will actually solve themselves if you don't interfere with them. Think of a muddy pond. If you want to see the bottom, what is the best thing to do? If you jump in and start scooping out the mud with your hands, you only make the water murkier. You are acting, but you are making it worse. If you simply sit on the bank and wait, the mud will settle on its own and the water will become clear. The calm mind knows when to sit on the bank. They know that time is a filter that separates noise from signal. By waiting, they allow the panicked people to exhaust themselves. They allow the false rumors to be debunked. They allow the garbage data to evaporate. When they finally do move, they move with total certainty because they are moving in clear water, building a life of calmness. Calmness is not just a technique you use during a crisis. It is a lifestyle you build during the peace. You cannot expect to be calm if your entire life is designed for chaos. To win the long game, you must build structural calmness into your life. Financial buffers. Panic is often the result of having no margin for error. If you have 6 months of savings, a market crash is an opportunity. If you have 0 savings, it's an existential threat. Low information diet. Stop consuming the outrage of the hour. If it won't matter in a year, it doesn't deserve your attention today. The circle of stability. Surround yourself with people who are anchors, not sails. If your inner circle is full of drama addicts, you will eventually catch their virus. By building a stable foundation, you lower the baseline of your stress. This makes it much easier to maintain your composure when the external world starts to shake. The infinite game. The philosopher James Cass spoke about the difference between finite games and infinite games. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning, like a single football match or a single negotiation. An infinite game is played for the purpose of continuing the play. Your life, your career, and your reputation are infinite games. The panicked person thinks they are in a finite game. They think this one argument, this one mistake, or this one crisis is the end of the world. So they play dirty. They lie, they shout, and they make desperate moves. The calm person knows they are in an infinite game. They know that how they behave today will affect their reputation for the next 20 years. They are willing to lose a small skirmish today if it means maintaining their integrity and their composure for the long haul. When you play the infinite game, you become untouchable. Because you aren't desperate for a win right now, you can't be manipulated. You have the ultimate luxury, the luxury of time. Final practice, the 10th of October, 10 rule. The next time you are on the verge of a panicked reaction, use this mental framework. How will I feel about this decision in 10 minutes? Usually, you'll feel relieved. How will I feel about it in 10 months? Often, you'll feel regret. How will I feel about it in 10 years? Usually, the crisis will be forgotten, but the consequences of your reaction will still be there. If the decision doesn't look good in the 10 years frame, don't do it. Conclusion: the gift of stillness. We have traveled through the mechanics of panic, the biology of the nervous system, the weaponization of silence, and the power of detachment. But at the heart of all these lessons is a single, simple truth. Your calmness is your greatest asset. The world will always have reasons to panic. There will always be another virus, another crash, another scandal, and another emergency. Most people will spend their lives reacting to these shadows, being tossed around like corks in a storm. But you have the tools to be different. You know how to observe the chaos without absorbing it. You know how to breathe when the world is gasping. You know how to wait when everyone else is rushing. By becoming calm while everyone else panics, you aren't just surviving the storm. You are becoming the force that dictates the direction of the wind. Go out into the world. Be the anchor. Be the observer. Be the mountain. Let the world scream and rush and tremble. You have nothing to fear. You have the pause. You have the breath. And you have the long game. The mantra: short-term emotion destroys long-term success. Choose success. Choose strategy. Choose calm. The end. Become calm while everyone else panics. Master your state. Master your world.